Hello, this is Lane Marsh from Miss Babcock's 2014 class, and this is a passage talking about the doctors during the influenza outbreak in 1918, and today we will be looking for parallel structure and antithesis within this passage. If you will pause the video for a second, you can read the passage. If not, you can just continue. In the beginning lines in the first paragraph, certainty creates strength and uncertainty creates weakness. That is an example of parallel structure because each sentence is exactly the same, and the author uses that to highlight this difference. Continuing in the second paragraph, it is not the courage to venture into the unknown, it is the courage to accept, indeed embrace uncertainty. That's a little bit more less similar, but still it begins with the it is, which means that the author is still defining things and making it clearer to the reader. Moving on to finding antithesis within the passage. Throughout the passage, if you read it, if not, I'll just explain it. Throughout the passage, you can find that the author continuously says that doctors know so much only because they know so little, but they continually try to correct that by venturing into the unknown to discover the known. And through that contrast in ideas, the doctor tries to capture the image of exactly what these doctors were trying to do. And that is parallel structure and antithesis.
Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to look at JFK's inaugural speech. Now would be a good time to pause the video so you can look over it. You're going to need to understand the entire speech to write about any devices properly. The device we're looking for in his inaugural speech is an asyndeton, the omission or absence of a conjunction between parts of the sentence. Basically, it's commas without and, or but. As you can see, I've highlighted the part in the passage that asyndeton is used. The structure of pay any, bear any, meet any, support any, oppose any, they're all separated by commas. However, if you look, JFK never says the word and. This makes it a polysyndeton. It completely changes the tempo of his speech. It makes it a lot faster. And it came across to the audience that he was ready for action. Now let's look at something almost the opposite. We're still going to look at a speech by JFK. This one is the I Am a Berliner speech he made in the period during the Cold War. Now keep that in mind when you look for a polysyndeton. Again, this would be a good time to pause the video so you can read and understand what JFK is trying to say. A polysyndeton is pretty much the opposite of an asyndeton, whereas a means none, poly means many. So you're going to look for where the speaker uses and in succession, as in a book and a pencil and a notebook and anything else you could think of. So once again, I highlighted where in the passage the device is used. Now in this speech, it's a very small part, but it's a very important part. To democracy and freedom and progress is a very important part of this speech because this is during the Cold War. So for this part of Berlin to accept democracy and freedom and progress was very important in a time where JFK was battling communism. That's something, if you were ever to write about this speech, you would be able to use. It's also outside knowledge that Babcock likes to look at. Okay, the next speech is from Malcolm X. Now, you're going to read a speech by Martin Luther King Jr. in the class, but Malcolm X is entirely different in the way he speaks and in the way he tries to come across to the audience. Now, again, pause the video, read, look over it, make sure you understand what he's trying to say. Right now, we're looking for an antimetabole. And an antimetabole is a repetition of words in success. It's saying, I know what I like, and I like what I know. I always had sort of a hard time with this just because it was an odd word for me. And I also got it confused with all the other A words like antithesis and so on and so forth. But again, I've highlighted the section, and he says, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock was landed on us. And this is not really a traditional example of it, but it is a good example of it. In the first part of the sentence, he starts with land and ends with rock. In the second part, he says starts with rock and ends with land, and that's basically how an antimetabole works. It's basically him using negation first and then a definition, so he can show how burdens have been pushed onto his people. Now you're going to go to the next divide.